Hi, I'm Haley and welcome back to my channel. I am back with another round of Is It Worth It and Should You Buy It? This time I want to talk about the Celine sample discovery set. I picked this up for $54 from the Celine website and it has 12 fragrances here. So I believe this is the entire line and they are 2 mils each. So it's a very nice little size fragrance sampler to kind of get to know all the fragrances in the Celine line, which I believe has been out since 2019. So prior to picking up this little set right here, I had only tried one of the fragrances, which I like well enough. We'll get into that as I talk about each of the fragrances, but I just really wanted to pick this up because I was super curious about it. I love Celine as a brand. I love their ethos. I love the vibe. I love all of it. And so I was super excited to try some more of their fragrances. And this was a very interesting little collection of fragrances right here. I will talk all about them in great detail, but I felt like, spoiler alert, all of the fragrances leaned very masculine. They also leaned not super wearable for the majority of people, but they also weren't really leaning into a lot of the trends in niche designer perfumery right now. So I did think it was interesting. Like I said, spoiler alert, there weren't a lot of things in here that I personally would choose to rewear. Again, I'll get into all of that. I am glad that I picked it up. It was a nice experience purchasing it. I got a really nice little email, I'm sure a form email, but it was nice nonetheless, from one of the Celine sales associates at their store here in LA after purchasing this, asking if I needed any help or anything like that, which I thought was a very nice touch. So I think this is really nice. The box and the presentation is very classy and well done, very quality, and I don't want to hold it up too high because all of these have already fallen out of here, but I have given all of these a fair shake, I believe, and let's get on into each of the fragrances and let you know what I think. So since each of these is just a little tester size, I will just go ahead and pop up the name of each fragrance on the screen as I talk about them. But first up, I'm gonna speak about Parade. So this fragrance is a very aromatic, citrusy fragrance with notes of neroli, bergamot, vetiver, oak moss, and musk. And to my nose, this is a very masculine leaning fragrance. To me, it smells like a lot of classic men's sort of aftershaves, sort of like your Acqua di Parma's, fragrances that are in that masculine aromatic citrus realm. For me, I probably would not rewear this one. I didn't think it was offensive, but I also did not get a lot of wear time on this or many of the other fragrances here. I'll talk more about that, but for most of these very citrus forward ones, I really got 1 to 2 hours max on the wear time, so I would say that's a major con with these, as well as just it not being my vibe. So while I do love citrus perfumes, I do like neroli from time to time also. I just felt like the oak moss and the musk in this, as well as the vetiver actually, those three things really gave it a super masculine slant. Obviously anyone can wear any fragrance, but for me, this is just not one that I would reach for or wear again because it really just felt like throwing on men's cologne. And I love Acqua di Parma. I love fragrances like that, but at this point in my life, that's just not what I'm reaching for or what I want to wear. It really just doesn't feel like me. So for that reason, I'm not super into Parade, but I think for the right person, they could really enjoy this one. I think it's very classy. It's just not super long lasting. Another thing I want to note going forward, just for you all to keep in mind as we talk about each of these fragrances, they all retail for $310 for a full-size bottle. So quite spendy. Not super accessible for most people, and like I was saying, the juice is not super long lasting, not on my skin at least, and yeah, I just don't know if these warrant that price tag. I do know that they are, you know, luxury designer, all of that, but there are plenty of luxury designer perfumes that are worth that price, and I don't know if these ones are. So I just wanted to note that before going forward. The next perfume I'm going to talk about is Saint-Germain-des-Prés. This is the one that I had tried before, and I actually really like this one. It is very powdery. It is pretty. It's a little bit vanillic. It has notes of petitgrain, neroli, heliotrope, orris root, and vanilla. And to me, this comes off as a very powdery, slightly vanilla-based floral. To me, it reminds me a lot of like a grown-up loves Baby Soft. If you ever had that like as a child or smelled it on anyone, you know what I'm talking about. It is ultra powdery. And for this one, I feel like the powderiness is kind of just the main talking point here. It really just underscores everything about this fragrance, and that's kind of all there is to it. It's pretty, but it is a powder bomb. So if you don't like powdery fragrances, this is not the one for you, but I do enjoy it. I think it's pretty, and that is, again, what enticed me to buy this full discovery set, because I liked it. I thought, I'm like, hey, I like this fragrance enough to explore what else they have on offer. We'll talk about whether I was right or wrong in that sentiment as we go forward with some of these. But another thing that I like about these, and another thing that really sucked me in, was the copy on their website describing each of these fragrances. So I've talked about this with some other brands, but some brands, they need to give their copywriters a raise, because they are so good at like spinning a story, crafting a narrative about these fragrances that really sometimes gets me to buy. So for this one, the description on their website is the eternal youth of the left bank and their allure, looking like heroes from a novel in the movies. Young people Hedy Slimane never tires of observing, sitting in a cafe at Saint-Germain-des-Prés, his favorite part of Paris since he was 20 years old. That's so cool. I love that. And they're all like that. I definitely encourage you to take a look at their website and the fragrance descriptions there if you're interested in buying any of these, because they're really well done and almost poetic in their way. Almost as good as the BDK ones, but not quite as good as the BDK copy, because that one is probably the best I've ever seen. But yes, Saint-Germain-des-Prés, I like it. It's very vanilla, very pretty. I feel like this one leans on the feminine end of the spectrum, you know, if there is one. All of these fragrances are meant to be, you know, gender neutral, but some of them to me come across as more feminine or more masculine, and this one definitely comes off as more feminine because of that ultra powderiness. But I do think it's very pretty. It's very wearable if you like powdery fragrances. Then next up we have Cologne Française. This one is more of a woodsy, mossy fragrance with the notes of moss, of course, fig tree, neroli, orris, and musk. And despite the neroli and fig, this comes across as also pretty masculine to me. I think it could be sort of on that gender neutral edge, and I think some people who prefer, you know, feminine fragrances might get somewhere out of this and might enjoy it more than I do. But for me, this one did not last very well on me at all. This one was really one of the ones that dissipated very quickly. And while I like all of these notes, I feel like for me to truly enjoy this, I would need some more florals or fruitiness here for me to really enjoy this fragrance. Just, I love fig, and I do get the fig note here, but that musky mossiness is just too masculine for my taste. I think it would smell nice on someone else. It's just not one that I would reach for. And then the next one in the line is Dans Paris, and I like this one as well. This is a slightly spicy vanilla with notes of vanilla, laurel blossom, coriander, musk, and bergamot. I think it's nice. I like this take on a vanilla. It's not a sweet vanilla. Like I said, it's more of a sort of herbal, spicy vanilla from that coriander. And a little bit of freshness from the bergamot. I think it's really nice. If you're looking for a vanilla that's not sickly sweet and you like those sort of spicy herbal notes, I think you might enjoy this one. Again, I like it theoretically, but it's not one that I'm going to reach for and wear. I think this is one of probably in the top third of all of these for me. I think it's nice, it smells good, but it's just not one that I'm gonna rewear. I just know myself and I know that. Again, I think if some of these incorporated some more like floral or fruitier or like amber type notes, things that I really love, you know, I might be more inclined towards some of them. And I think it's no surprise that some of the more floral ones like Saint-Germain-des-Prés, you know, for example, are the ones that I was more interested in wearing and re-wearing. But I do really like the copy on this as well. It says, "The promise of Paris when you are just 20 years old and feeling that the city belongs to you." I just think that's so lovely. Such a nice mental image. So I thought that one was really nice, but again, not one that I'm super drawn to or probably I'm gonna rewear. Okay, and then the next one is La Peau Nue, which means nude skin. And this one has notes of orris, rice, rose, bergamot, and vetiver. And this one is another super powdery one, but it goes in a different way because it's not vanillic, like Saint-Germain-des-Prés. This one is very reminiscent of like a powdery makeup or like skincare product, especially those products like kind of from the 70s and 80s that were very, very powdery, like either dusting powder or some kind of lotion or something like that. It really has that sort of cosmetic powderiness, I think, from the orris. And I do also get that rice note as well because, you know, there's different kinds of rice scents, right? There's like a sticky cooked rice and there's like the powdery raw rice. And in this one, I'm definitely getting more of that powdery raw rice note. So it's really interesting. I know sometimes people are specifically looking for certain notes. Like I've seen people on YouTube really going wild for rice note fragrances. So I think if you're one of those people, you might be inclined to check this one out. I think it's really interesting. I think the name fits on this one because again, sort of that powderiness, slight earthiness of this fragrance does kind of convey just like nude skin, not even in a sexual way, just like in a human way. And I think it's interesting. Again, not one that I'm super into. I like the powderiness of the other one more than this one because this one is really that like makeup or cosmetic product powderiness and not like the vanillic powderiness that I spoke of. If you know the difference, I think you know what I'm talking about, but I know a lot of people love that sort of like lipstick tube powdery scent. So if you're one of those people, again, you might want to check this one out, but again, not one that I'm super into or going to rewear. Then next up, we have another very vanillic fragrance and one that I actually did really enjoy, and this is Zouzou, and it has notes of vanilla, tonka bean, benzoin, musk, patchouli, and labdanum. And to me, this one is very youthful. It's a little bit sweet, but again, has that really vanilla vibe. And to me, I almost get like a cereal note to it. Like I kind of feel like it smells like a bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios with milk. There's not like a lactonic really note here, but I do kind of get that sweet lactonic vibe here. It's like creamy and cozy without being saccharine. And I think it's nice. I think it's very pretty. I read the notes on this one and it said that it was kind of inspired by those sort of pixie cut gals of the 60s, like Jean Seberg, Françoise Sagan, people like that. I think that's a really fun reference for this fragrance. It does feel very like youthful and, you know, kind of like a childlike energy about it. So I did really enjoy that one. It did not last well on me, so it's not one that I could wholeheartedly recommend. But again, I would say this one was sort of in the top third of these fragrances for me. I think it's really pretty and kind of like cute and cozy, and I did enjoy it. Then next up, we have a really interesting lavender fragrance, which is Rimbaud. And this one is a very aromatic and slightly masculine lavender with top notes of neroli and citrus, mid notes of lavender, orris, iris, and white flowers, and base notes of vanilla and woody notes. So this one to me smells, like I said, a slightly masculine take on lavender. It's not a sweet or a creamy lavender, but that lavender vibe is really strong. And a lot of times lavender can take over the rest of the fragrance, and it does that here, but I feel like to success, I feel like that is what it's trying to achieve. It really reminds me of like a beautiful lavender field in Provence or something like that. It is very beautiful. I think it's really well done. It does not last very well. A lot of these aromatic fragrances sometimes don't have a lot of staying power, and this one doesn't. But I think if you're looking for kind of like a masculine take on lavender, I would definitely seek this one out. It is very pretty and pleasant to my nose, but it's probably, again, not one that I'm going to reach for and wear. I'm not super into wearing lavender as much as I love the way it smells. I don't like it on myself, but I love the smell of lavender. I think it's so unique and special and kind of like intoxicating in its way. So again, if you're looking for a very aromatic lavender focused fragrance with more of a masculine slant, this could be one for you to check out. So next up we have Bois Dormant, and this has top notes of juniper berries and bergamot, mid notes of orris root, and base notes of cedar and vetiver. And to me, this is one of the ones that feels strictly masculine. Like it just smells like a men's cologne. That's kind of all it is to me. That juniper and the vetiver just comes through as 100% masculine to me. I did try this on my skin, but it's just not one that I'm gonna reach for or wear. It just smells like a men's cologne, and that's kind of all there is to it. It is woody, which, you know, is in the name, Bois Dormant, sleeping wood, but it's just not one for me. I think on a guy this could smell great, or again, anybody who wants to wear this fragrance, but it's just not to my preference and not one that I'm gonna reach for. It also doesn't smell like that niche. To me, it smells like a lot of designer men's fragrances. It doesn't smell that special or interesting to me. So I wasn't super into that one, probably one of my least favorites here. Next up, we've got Eau de Californie, which is a nod to California vibes, and this one has notes of Palo Santo, bergamot, moss, orris, and patchouli. And I feel like this is a pretty good California fragrances. I feel like a lot of brands kind of try and do this where they're like, we're gonna make a California scent, and they always kind of use the same things, which is like Palo Santo and patchouli. The bergamot here does kind of give it a bit of freshness, and I do really get that Palo Santo. That is like the overarching theme here. The Palo Santo really comes through, and it's not a burning Palo Santo. So a lot of times when they use that note, they kind of combine it with the smokiness as like the lit Palo Santo. This one is just the dry wood. So if you like that, you might like this fragrance. Again, I don't think this is bad. It's just, to me, it reads very masculine cologne type, but I think it's very nice for what it is. Again, no lasting power on this one or on any of these, to be honest, but I think it's nice. I think that's someone else I would really enjoy it, but it's just not one that I'm going to wear personally. Next up, we've got Reptile. I think this one is pretty interesting. It's one that I've heard people talk a little bit about in the fragrance community, but this has notes of moss, leather, pepper, musk, and cedar. And I'm not super into leather fragrances. That's just not my vibe. It's just a fragrance note that if I see it on the list, I know it's not going to be one that I'm into. And I agree with that here. Again, it's just a super masculine combination of notes. There's nothing like to temper it. It's just the moss, the leather, pepper, musk, and cedar. It creates a really nice men's cologne, but it's just not one for me or one that I'm going to reach for or wear again. Again, I think it's nice, but for someone else, not for me. The leather doesn't overpower this. I think it's nice, and I do like it in conjunction with the moss here, but it's just not one that I'm gonna wear or reach for. And I think for the price, you can get something with those notes that has a lot better lasting power. So I don't really think we've got good value for money here. And then second to last fragrance, we've got Black Tie, which is another powdery vanilla fragrance. So one thing that I've noticed throughout these fragrances is that a lot of times they use the same fragrance notes in different combinations. So this fragrance has notes of vanilla, orris, cedar, musk, and moss, which are a lot of the same notes that we've seen over and over again with these fragrances. I think this one is most similar to Saint-Germain-des-Prés, but it has the sort of powderiness turned down a little bit, and it's just a different vanilla vibe. I feel like the cedar and the orris are turned up a little bit in this one, and the vanilla and the powderiness are turned down, if that makes sense. So I think this is really nice. It's actually really beautiful, and this is the one that I feel like I would probably reach for, like out of my like top 5. I feel like I would reach for this one again. I think it's really pretty and gorgeous. Again, is it worth $310 for a full-size bottle with not very good lasting time? That's up to you. I would not spend $310 for a bottle a full-size bottle of this one. And that's for the smaller size bottle, by the way. They have a bigger bottle that's even more expensive, but I think it's very pretty. I think, again, if you really love those powdery orris fragrances, you might want to check this one out. Then last up, we have Nightclubbing, and I think this is probably the coolest and most interesting fragrance here. I feel like they did something very chic and cool here, and I do enjoy it. I think it's really very well done. So this fragrance, again, has notes of orris, galbanum, vanilla, moss, musk, and patchouli. So this one is all about recreating those night out vibes, and I feel like this does it very well. To me, I think it's the galbanum in it, but it does really smell like a freshly lit cigarette. So not cigarette smoke that has been collecting, not like, you know, centuries old cigarette smoke baked into the paint in the walls. It's more like when you're out on the street in Paris and you smell a whiff of a freshly lit cigarette and it smells kind of good, even though that, you know, smoking is bad and all of that, but the actual fresh cigarette with the fresh air comes together and it just smells so good. That's what this smells like to me, and I really do get that night out vibe that they're trying to create here. I think it's really well done, and I like this fragrance a lot. I think it's really just very cool and chic. Like I was saying, like I feel like this is night out vibes. You know, you could be anywhere. You could be in Paris, you could be in New York, you could be Berlin, anywhere cool, and this would work really well. And it's one that I feel like is kind of a standout here. Again, it doesn't last super long for me, but I like what they did, and I thought it was really interesting and unique among all the fragrances here. And in this one, I feel like, again, they're taking that same collection of notes, so the orris, the vanilla, the moss, the musk, the patchouli, all of those things, and they're kind of blending them in a slightly different way. And I think it is really cool that the same through line, so like the same thread, is kind of pulled throughout this fragrance line. I think that's a really cool, and I don't see a lot of brands doing that. So I know we talk a lot about, oh, the house DNA and things like that. This one is very evident. So they're really into that powdery orris vibe, the vanilla, but not the sweet vanilla, the musk, the moss, all of those same things pop up again and again and again. And I think it's very cool, and I like the way that I see what you did there, you know what I mean? I don't love the lasting power on these, but I do think some of these are good. I was hoping that I would find some favorites here. I didn't, but I did really enjoy trying these and just looking at the notes and comparing them against each other. I think it's a really fun exercise for anybody to do, but especially if you love fragrance like I do. So my least favorites were any of the ones that just smelled like men's cologne to me. So Cologne Française, Bois Dormant, any of those ones that I spoke about earlier. Did not love those, would not rewear, but the ones that I liked the most were Zouzou. I thought the vanilla vibe here was, again, that kind of sort of cereal vibe. I enjoyed it. I felt very youthful and fun. Really liked that one. And like I said, a little bit cozy as well. Black tie I thought was very kind of, you know, grown up in a sexy way. I thought that was very nice. I still really like Saint-Germain-des-Prés. I went into this liking that one as well. It's super powdery, but done in a way that is just so well done. It's just really fabulously done. So really like that one still as well. And then Nightclubbing, which I just spoke about, I think is really fabulous. So those are my thoughts on these fragrances. Let me know down in the comments below if you've tried any of these. They're not super accessible, so I know they're not like at Sephora and Macy's and any of those places, but let me know if you've tried any of these and what your thoughts are and what your favorites and least favorites are. As always, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye.